YouTube always has like this weird delay. All right. Welcome back to Boss Uncaged podcast. On today's show, like anyone that knows me knows like I'm a hustler and I hustle, and anyone that's an entrepreneur is essentially you're a hustler by default. So I'm going to deem this individual the side hustler boss, and he's going to be able to tell you why very shortly. So the microphone is yours, Christian. Why don't you tell our audience a little bit more about who you are and what are we talking about today?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I really appreciate your time, man. This is really exciting stuff, and obviously what you've been able to create. And, one of the biggest things we always hear about hustle, hustle, hustle. You always have to have a side hustle. And I think definitely in the COVID situation, people realize that, right? All of a sudden you have a one income stream. All of a sudden that just disappears literally overnight. And you're sitting there going, oh crap, right? With your finger up your butt. And so you're like, you got to figure something out, right? And so the biggest thing is that, but how do you find the right hustle? And how do you find something that actually will cash flow, produce results, right? Because I mean, in today's world, you could go and buy info products and buy this and buy that and buy this, and people will be glad to take your money. But it's like, you got to figure out how to actually create something that brings an extra $3, $4, $5, $7, $10,000 coming in, and you eradicate the crap out of your debt. So that's kind of what I focus on. I help people, go out there and build businesses online so they can, and I'm not talking about little surveys and random little crap and get $10 here and $15. I'm talking about some substantial income that can totally make an impact in your life and in your situation. And the biggest thing to me isn't just going out there and buying info products. You could read all day long, you could watch YouTube all day long, you could listen to all this stuff, but at the end of the day, it's like, hey, how do I find something that actually is going to produce results? And what I've realized is finding people that have the ambition and then have the system, and you implement that together, and you just produce results, at the end of the day. So that's kind of what I focus on. That's what I've been able to help a tremendous amount of people. The journey has been a process, but now we're really enjoying the fruits of our labor.
Nice. I mean, with that, obviously being a marketer and being an online creator and creating content, I understand exactly the principles that you're talking about. So anybody that doesn't really know, like obviously there's some people that sell $10 here, $5 there, and their goal is to scale that, to sell thousands of that to really make their revenue. But on the other side, there's people that are selling $10,000 products, $20,000 products. So, where do you fall on that scale? Are you more, obviously you're not on the $10 products. Are you more on the 20,000, or you're kind of like the 5,000, 1,000? Like, where do you sit at?
Yeah, very good question. So what we tend to focus on are higher ticket items. So whether that's e-commerce, whether that's service provide, whatever it is. And the reason why mainly is because obviously marketing expense, you can't really control that sometimes, right? YouTube ads are going up. Facebook ads, we all know, are going up, right? Cost per click and so forth. But at the end of the day, if you have a higher ticket, you have a larger room of margin. But it's not just about, and I want people to understand, it's not just about putting a random price up there and saying, hey, it's $5,000, come and join. No, it's really about, okay, do we have enough value to be able to, validate the price of whatever we're offering, right? I mean, that's what it really comes down to. So you have to have a sexy offer, right? And one of the things I want to kind of dive into a little bit is so many times we focus on these little, technical Facebook tricks or YouTube tricks or this or that. And what I've realized much more than anything else, see, it doesn't really matter what your page on your website looks like. It doesn't matter what your color of the button looks like. All those things are irrelevant. It doesn't even matter what your logo looks like. Nobody cares. What matters is the offer and making it so sexy. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, making it so sexy that it's like, I can't say no to this. Like if you go into Home Depot and say, hey, you know what? I'm looking for a mower. And then guess what? You could just buy a mower. Or you could have someone say, hey, you know what? You get a mower, plus you get a weed eater, plus you get 2-year warranty, plus you get $50 off today if you buy it today. Oh my gosh, that's an incredible offer. Well, I better, take that up, right? So that's what I look at is like you create something that is so sexy that's like, well, shoot, and it's the same price as this mower over here. Well, dang, I'm definitely buying it. So that's kind of what I look at. It's not just saying, oh, it's a random price, but yes, we do focus on the higher ticket items just because the margins are just a lot better, and you can work and you can scale a lot faster.
Yeah, so for our audience that's listening, I want you to understand like the really inside of what he's telling you, right? So he's talking about stacking. So you want to give not only a perceived value, but you want to give it a value add. So if you're going to charge, just say, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm going to charge $1,000 for this particular product, I'm going to give you 10 times the value, and I'm going to itemize out these items and say, hey, here's everything you're going to get for $1,000. Like this one product is worth 1,000, but you're going to get 9 additional products also similarly worth the same price. And if you combine them all together, they're about $10,000 in value. So it becomes a no-brainer, hence his statement about being sexy. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yep, you're 100% correct. And that's one of the things that I focus on majority of the time is we don't focus, like I said, that all those things are so irrelevant. This is something I learned from Steve Hofstetter. It's like focusing on simplicity in your funnel, in your process, in your system. The more simpler it becomes, the faster you're able to scale and move and produce results. And one of the things I also tell people is I don't focus on the value ladder where I have a $5-7 item on the front end and then try to get them up to the, $50, $100 item. And then all of a sudden up to, 400, 500, 600, and then all of a sudden 10,000 and so forth and so on, right? I focus on the higher ticket item and just say, hey, this is what I offer. If you like it, fantastic. And then I have free content on YouTube and other stuff, right? So I don't focus on all these other levels because there's just so much testing and it becomes so complicated. And for the average individual, you're going to get lost, honestly, unless you're an expert marketer. You're just going to get lost. And the biggest thing is keeping it simple to create that cash flow. And that's what it comes down to, focusing on cash flow at the beginning. Does that make sense?
Yeah, very, very nice, very nice. So I mean, with that, I mean that kind of leads me to like another question, right? So you're talking about like the value ladder, right? And a lot of times, the statement is usually you want to have a product for every single person that's your target demographic, whether they're starting out, whether they're more professional, or whether they're more advanced. Hence why there's like a value difference or cost difference between them. But what you're saying is like skip the first two, go to the high ticket item, and put all your bread and butter into that one basket. And then from there, everything else that you have, you can essentially do for free to kind of become automatic lead magnets.
Correct. And let me explain the thought process behind that. So one of the things I learned from Joel Irway was imagine you're at a fair and you have some sort of like little teaching that says, hey, I want to teach you about food and I'm going to have a food training and we're going to teach you all the ins and outs. And on the back end, you're selling apple pies. Well, what if, for example, instead of doing all that and attracting all these people, what if you just say, hey, do you want an apple pie? Right. So what happens is you're attracting only people that are looking to purchase an apple pie. And so what happens is your conversions become better, as well as then on the front end, so many people have watched 90-minute webinars. And the thing is honestly, people don't have time for 90-minute webinars. You sit there and talk about this and talk about that and train. And a lot of people already know what they need to do. It's, hey, what can you do for me? And so what I do basically is say, hey, if I did this, this, and this, and this, would you take me up on this offer? Would you like it? That's something I learned from Joel Irway, and it totally flipped the whole industry upside and down because now I was able to target people, and now people know what I offer, and I'm very straightforward and say, do you want it? If not, move on. This is not for you. If you do, schedule a phone call, right? And allowed us to be able to expedite the process, have a better conversion rate because now I'm attracting only people that are looking for what they want and what I'm offering basically. So again, all I'm saying is, hey, do you want an apple pie? No, that's fine. Good luck. Do you want an apple pie? Yes, fantastic. How many apple pies do you want? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about you a little bit more, right? Like if you could define yourself in 3 to 5 words, what would those 3 to 5 words be?
Well, I would say simplicity, ambitious, motivated, a visionary, as well as just, I love to talk about leveraging a lot. And the reason why I talk about this stuff is because obviously ambitious, motivated, that's like everybody else. Everybody else is very ambitious. But one of the biggest things that I focus on is leveraging other individuals. So I'm not really the best at sales. I enjoy it. I obviously took it from, from zero to 6-figure business just off of me, closing and selling and stuff like that. So, but I wasn't the best. And so then leveraging other people that are actually been there doing it a lot better. Plus I leverage a lot of people's content. As you can see on my YouTube and other stuff that I have, I'm not sitting there going out there and trying to create my own training system, trying to sell that. I really don't care. I leverage other people that are better at it than I am. And I have a good contract with them and say, hey, can I leverage your content for my audience? They're, of course, they're going to say yes, and so I leverage their content. They've already done all the hard work and all I do is leverage it. It's the same thing with like sales funnels. I find sales funnels that work, already produce. Hey, can I leverage it? Can I buy it from you? Fantastic. And then obviously we just implement it, create our own little offer and stuff like that. So one of the biggest things is when you start realizing you can leverage other people's stuff and they're fine with it, then it's just like you expedite the process instead of having to sit there and worry about, oh gosh, it's one of the things that I learned from Russell Brunson. He talks about not find the who that can do the what, right? And so obviously people understand that, well, instead of doing the ads, guess what? I don't know how to do that. That's why people partner with us because they don't know how to do all the techie stuff, the integration, all the systems and processes. We do. Give us a few $1,000, we'll do it for you. Fantastic, right? And we expedite that whole process and we're able to collapse timeframes. Sure, is it pretty pricey? Yeah, but also it's all relative. If I can help you make a 6-figure business, Well, are you happy? Are you satisfied? Right? It's the same concept, right? So that's to answer that question. That's kind of what we focus on is those kind of 5 qualities that I would say that I kind of fall into.
Nice, nice. So I mean, obviously, I think like either like you drink a lot of coffee or you're just a naturally energetic dude, right? So like what were you like as a kid? Were you the kid bouncing off the wall, or were you the kid kind of orchestrating behind the scenes, kind of, or a combination of both?
Well, I really appreciate that. Yeah, one of the things is that I am very naturally, energetic. I really enjoy people. I really enjoy talking to people. When I was younger, in fact, I would actually be in school. I would be really calm and focused. But then after school, man, all of a sudden my energy would just pop, and my mom would have to calm me down, and I just get too excited. I get in trouble and stuff like that. But that's one of the reasons why I enjoy entrepreneur. I mean, you see Gary Vee, you see these other people that have incredible energy and excitement about life, and that's really what it comes down to. But I really appreciate you saying that. Yeah. So, but yeah, I'm just energetic and life is fun, So,
Nice, nice. So with the next question, right? I mean, obviously, like you're dealing with entrepreneurs, right? You're dealing probably with business owners, and there's different type of personality traits, right? There's E, there's A, there's B type personalities, and obviously there's people that could be complete assholes. So on this journey that you've been on, working with all these different entrepreneurs, like what's the worst case, without naming names, example of the worst customer you ever dealt with, and how did you overcome that?
yeah, one of the things I always tell people on the front end when we onboard someone, I tell people very straightforward, this is not going to be a one night stand opportunity. Okay. And what do I mean by this? You're not going to be a bajillionaire tomorrow, right? And it's sad that I have to even say that, but I have to say it, right, in today's world, right? And so allowing people to have the right expectation. And then also I say, hey, there are 2 different types of people in today's world. Okay. Not black, not white, not gay, not straight, not liberal or conservative. 2 different types of people. One that are excuse makers, the little crybabies over here in the corner. Man, I'm not where I'm at because of my race, my religion, my whatever, right? And those are excuse makers. Or you can be a solution seeker. And I explain to them, hey, I find that you're a solution seeker, right? Obviously, the investment is quite hefty, but also I give them certain homework. And it's not for them to just implement in their life. That's part of it. But it's also to see, hey, are they willing? Everybody's busy. Are they willing to prioritize the homework, the things that I have them do? Because what allows me to understand, are they a solution seeker? Yes, I know you're working 50 hours a week. I know you got kids, but are you willing to stay up late? Are you able to wake up early? Whatever it takes to prioritize that content, the homework that I've given to you. And so it's a test and allows me to see, and you'll be amazed. That's one of the things that drives me crazy is when someone invests into something, but they're not accountable to themselves, right? I don't care if you succeed or not. I don't care if you watch the content or not. It's not me. It's you. You're not hurting me, right? You're hurting yourself and your family and your situation. And that's one of the things that drive me nuts is you're not accountable to yourself. Hey, waking up, showing to the appointment. Hey, if something happens, just let me know. We can obviously change the appointment. And as well as being accountable to yourself and being a solution seeker and finding, don't give me excuse. And you'll be amazed. That's one of the things that I love really, diving in. Because I look at a winner, if you tell them what they need to hear, that's a winner, right? And I think a true winner is someone that, not always wants to know what they want to hear, but it's like what you need to hear. I'll tell you what you need to hear. Hey, man, I see you as this expectation, and I know you're capable of it, but honestly, you're disappointing me, man. You're disappointing. You didn't do this. You didn't do this. And he's like, oh, man. And you're like, you're making excuses for yourself, man. And so what allows you, it's unbelievable when you say that truth to him, all of a sudden, you'll be amazed next week or the week after, the right winners will raise to that expectation. And like, you know what? I'm doing this. I stayed up late because I knew I had a meeting with Christian. And I'm like, there you go. That's what I want. And I want you to understand, I'm not doing it to hurt you. I'm doing it because I know you're capable and nobody ever asked you to raise that expectation. But also what's nice is that I get feedback from them and saying, hey, Christian, do this and do this and do this. And so it allows us all to grow, of course, and produce results. And so that's one of the things that I always tell people when I'm dealing with entrepreneurs, that's what I focus on. You choose. You can be an excuse maker, a little crybaby over here, or you can be a solution seeker. It's up to you, man. And then as well as obviously saying, hey, you know what? Being accountable to yourself. So those are the things. And then also be patient, to be properly educated so you can fully understand this whole opportunity, the whole process, the whole system. You're not going to be a bajillionaire overnight. We have to really understand it. It's not going to make sense to you because majority of people that I'm working with are employees and self-employed. And so, yeah, okay, fantastic. You can be busy, but it's going to be weird implementing systems that are working for you while you're going over there and making love to your wife, pooping on the toilet, whatever it is. Guess what? You're going out there and you have systems working for you. It's going to be weird, but you have to embrace it. You have to acknowledge it. And it's going to be weird. Hey, if I spend $10,000, man, that's going to be, that hurts. But hey, on the back end, I made 50,000. Does that make sense? And so
Yeah.
it's a weird concept sometimes. So a lot of entrepreneurs, definitely when we always think about saving money. Oh, we got a penny pinch, Oh, I'm gonna go to Walmart and go to Jeff Bezos' store, and I got 2 day shipping and it's free stuff and whatever. Fantastic. But are you creating revenue? Are you creating cash flow? Do you have an asset that works for you? Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So, I mean, that leads me down to my. I mean, you brought up systems, and I'm a big systems guy, and I think anyone that's an entrepreneur, solopreneur, or business owner, the more you can understand and leverage systems, is the more impact you're going to have, and again, more cash flow moving forward. So, like, what do you mind giving us like an example of like what system that you currently have in your business? Like, what's your onboarding system look like?
Yeah, definitely. So one of the first systems that I focus on before anything else is cash flow. So if you don't have a system to create leads, to create cash flow, and create closes, then you don't. All the other systems are irrelevant. Oh, what's my onboarding session? What's my back end? What's my functioning? What's my systems to hire new employees? All that is irrelevant. It does not matter if you don't focus on cash flow. So many of us, we focus on logos, we focus on color of the buttons, we make it look all pretty and sexy. Hey, that's awesome. You put a lot of energy into it, but what's your cash flow, right? You got to figure out what's your offer, what's your cash flow. So that's one of the biggest first systems that I have. And you automate that process. The reason why I love YouTube the most is because then I don't have to wake up and Facebook all of a sudden deactivated my account. So I focus a lot of my time and energy on YouTube, honestly, YouTube ads and things like that. And then I do a lot of retargeting through Facebook. That's not a total dead end, but I've been able to walk away because it's more sustainable. So I have a YouTube ad, drives to an opt-in page, have a video page, watch our testimonials, and they say, hey, schedule a phone call or not. That's our funnel, period, dot exclamation point. Now, there's a few things that I can tweak and modify and all that stuff, but that's it. They schedule a phone call. We have a 78% show up rate. Okay, so when someone schedules a phone call, 78% of people showing up, which is beautiful, fantastic. And again, that shows to me accountable. If they don't show up, I don't chase them. I don't care. I put them into my 20-day email sequence, and they want to follow up. Fantastic. I know life happens, but I'm not going to chase them. I don't really care about that. Then I come over here and then also talk about systems. So once that system's established, then I focus on these other systems, which is basically the onboarding process. And you want to make sure on the front end, you have the right expectations. I've learned this very quickly. You want to make sure that these people see it and understand it, but also give them enough value. Now, our system is very done for you, so it's a very hands-off approach. That's the reason why they invest, X amount of dollars with us. But also on the back end, I want to give them enough content, give them enough value, and give them enough education. But also, tell them exactly what my team is going to be doing for them. So setting up the right expectations, and then a lot of times, when they invest 24 to 48 hours, they're onboarding with me directly. Or one of my account managers, but they're literally on the board with me, put it in my calendar. Wonderful. I'm there. I'm helping them. So it's not a whole full week. We keep that momentum going. And then 3 to 4 days, we do an onboarding session 2, which is, again, bringing everything together. And then we do a third one, which is literally 24 hours or 48 hours after that, which, of course, sets up the dashboard and everything, and we activate everything. And then on a week-to-week basis, we look at the metrics and optimizations, and then we also do inner circle meetings and stuff like that, group, and bring everything together. And that's kind of the whole kit and caboodle of everything. And then, of course, we have other systems as well. But those are the 2 big systems. Obviously, sales, cash flow, and then, of course, you have your onboarding session, properly educating people through that whole process.
Nice, very nice, very nice. So that leads me down. I mean, obviously, you orchestrated a timeline of like your efficiency and how things are set up. And someone listening to this right now, that's like, I love this guy. He's fast paced. He's dropping all this information. They're taking notes like crazy, and you become across as a overnight success story to them. But in reality, like, how long have you been on your journey to get to where you are currently?
Yeah, I really appreciate you saying that, because see, one of the things is I always tell people that I was addicted to pornography for a very long time, and then as well as I was actually prosecuted for 6 felonies. I stole people's credit cards, used them for my own benefit and things like that. I'm not proud of that, but that's just part of my story. And so one of the things is during this time, I remember just waking up, and I remember numerous times when I was spending $2,000 in ad spend a week, and I was making $2,500, and then I had to pay my salespeople, and so it was like literally I was just cutting zero. I was nothing, right? And I remember so many times I was trying to create Facebook ads, and then all of a sudden they got deactivated, and then all of a sudden I didn't have any phone calls, I didn't have any revenue, and then just everything was just numerous times. It just felt like it was deflating, and I just kind of kept trying to keep the business going, and it just never really produced anything. And so there's a lot of struggle on the front end. And one of the things is one of the things that I do and I still do today is, hey, when things aren't going, is one of the things I learned in stock trading. See, one of the things is people say if you trade 3 times
Mhm.
and you fail every single one of those and you lose money on every single one of those trades, the fourth and fifth and sixth, your mindset is not in the right place. And so you literally have to walk and discipline yourself and walk away from that and don't trade anymore. So what I do in business as well is all of a sudden, if things aren't going my way, all of a sudden, money was gone, or someone held up my money, or this or that, I literally have to walk away during that day, and maybe the whole day, or maybe even 20 minutes or 50 minutes, but I literally have to walk away from that, come over here, because I know in my mind, I'm not in the right mindset to make proper and educated decisions, because my emotions are all up and everything like that. And I'm just not going to be making the best decisions possible. And then also I do remember, numerous times that, and that's one of the reasons why listening to Steve Hofstetter, this is something that I had to figure out. You have to take ownership of your business. Nobody, even though people want to come alongside you, they're providing a service. A lot of people, they're going to do a crazy Facebook ad. But guess what? If you don't have a sexy offer, that Facebook ad is going to go on deaf ears. Who cares, right? You can spend, and it could be a great, fantastic ad, but unless you have a good offer, it's going to be irrelevant. And you could have a really good offer, but have horrible advertising, right? So it's one of those things that you have to, and it's been such a process. And one of the biggest things that I've had, one of my best mentors is, I listen to Steve Hofstetter. I never actually got to meet him personally, but he's been able to help me tremendously. But also a guy named Kim Blank, which is my YouTube guy. And he's been able to help me go from, simplify the whole process, like to the next level. And then really focusing on, once you get to that point where, okay, we're doing 10, 12, 15,000, $20,000 a month. Okay. Now it's tweaking. Okay, well, our opt-in rate is this. Our cost per click is this. Okay, what's our opt-in rate? Okay, and you find out all those metrics and really say, okay, how can I squeeze the lemon even more? Okay, so we got phone calls, we got a system, but then how do we squeeze the lemon even more? But on the first end, you got to figure, okay, we got to have a YouTube ad that works. We have to have an opt-in page. We have to have a video page. And I'll just tell you a few metrics. So like one of the biggest things is our cost per lead right now, just to get an email, is like $20 on YouTube. Now that's a lot, but at the end of the day, we know on the back end we're closing. So I'm okay with spending that. So many times we always think the other way around. Hey, we want to have low cost per lead, and people advertise, hey, I'm going to get you $2 leads and $2 clicks. Well, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I want, higher quality leads, and I'm okay with spending 10, 15, 20 bucks a lead, one email. That's not even guaranteeing the phone call on the back end. And our cost per phone call is $200, but that's okay because on the back end, we're making revenue, right? So it's one of those things that you have to know your metrics. One of the things C.S. Lewis talks about, if you don't know what a straight line is, how do you know what a squiggly line is? And what I mean by this is if you're running a Facebook ad and you don't know what's a successful campaign, then how do you know if it's going to be successful? How do you know the metrics, right? So you have to understand what's actually producing good results and what are the metrics. So like opt-in page, you should be doing about 20 to 30% of people opting in. Your video page, about 20% of people that land on that should be scheduling a phone call. If they don't, you got to get a better video, right? Meta testimonials. And then as well as you should be having definitely on YouTube, about 68 to 78% show up rate on your phone calls. If they're not showing up, then you got to do something different. And you have to have a good confirmation page and stuff like that. So I just want to share that. I know I kind of got into the weeds a little bit, but I really want to explain that a little bit because I think that's it's very important for people to understand, okay, what's successful and measuring those successes.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're an overvalued deliverer, right? I mean, you like to give value, so I mean, I definitely appreciate that. I'm sure the audience is sitting down there taking notes like psychopaths right now, right? So, I mean, with that, right? I think the next question is like I want to kind of dive into like your history a little bit more because I mean, you dropped a lot of little things that we kind of pull back the onions on. But first and foremost, like with that type of information that you're holding in your head, did that come from like an entrepreneurial background? Like, was your dad, your mom, like obviously you're a hustler and it seems like you're a natural hustler. Please tell me it came from somebody in your past.
Yeah. Well, one of the things is my dad is a real estate investor. Now, he actually was a high school teacher for a period of time. And then also he bought real estate. And after the divorce, they both had some real estate. Both my parents did. And so they were both very entrepreneurial. Now my mom, she lost a few other houses, but my dad, he always stayed in real estate. Now he didn't do big. He just had maybe 10 or 15, 20 houses, nothing too crazy. But did very well for himself. And so one of the things is I went to college and I realized, man, that is just not my forte. And I walked away, and it was quite a conversation. I had it paid for. I was in the Air Force. And so I could easily go through that. And I still look back and I say, I could easily go back and get a good job. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't want that anymore, right? It's coming over here and there's so many other things and so much activity and so much fun stuff. But there was a point in my life when definitely when it was all starting out, I was like, man, I just want to go get a job. This sucks. This is horrible, right? The pain, the frustration. I mean, let's be honest, right? But then also I realized I don't want to be chained to a job for the next 100 years. And then I said that frustration pisses me off even more than this, right? And so like, hey, it's okay if, PayPal holds almost 20 G's. I don't care. It's better than, being stuck at a job in a cubicle, right? And so you start looking at that pain. But anyways, coming back to more the entrepreneurial spirit, yes, I realized very quickly that was not my forte. I did not want to sit there and spend all my time and energy on a cubicle. And, I would rather go out there and fail. And that's one of the things I think people never understand. See, I remember numerous times when I literally had a negative $3,000 balance in my bank account because I knew knowingly that I went out there and deducted because I had to keep the Facebook ads running. I remember numerous times when I had to charge it to my bank account. I knew that there was no money in my bank account, but I did it anyways because I knew that there was like a 24-hour period until Facebook and my bank realized it, and so I could at least keep the Facebook ads running for a little bit, about 24 hours. And I know that's a really, really scammy, but I did it because I knew I was going to get phone calls. And then what was so beautiful, I remember this so distinctively, that all of a sudden I got 3 phone calls. I sold each one of them and I was able to pay off everything. And I'm not saying that you should do that. That was a horrible idea, but you do what you got to do when you're maxed out with your credit cards, when you're maxed out with this, and you realize there's no other option, there's no other choice, and you got to do what you got to do. And so to answer your question, though, coming back a little bit is yes, a lot of my family is a very entrepreneurial spirit, and it's been a lot of fun. And but obviously taking our life to the next level, that's where you get working with, in today's world, it's just been remarkable. I mean, you can run an ad over YouTube and run an ad in India and start talking to people all over the internationally and empower them to get out of their situation and to make an impact in the world. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Nice, very nice. So, I mean, just going back, I mean, to take it back like maybe 10 minutes back in this conversation, I mean, you alluded to being addicted to porn. You also talked about, like the scamming aspect of what you did. And I think that kind of helped you to be a little bit more risk adverse, right? I mean, you just take risks knowing that potentially there's a reward. So I want to talk about like how did you go from taking those credit card informations to utilizing that to where you're using it on the good side versus the dark side?
Yeah, very good. And it's very interesting because see, this one of the things that I learned in being addicted to pornography was I understood myself a little bit more, right? And one of the things is when you start analyzing yourself a little bit, that helped me understand, okay, what are your temptation points, right? And allowing yourself, okay, creating boundaries where, okay, you're able to remove yourself, right? One of the things I always tell people is like, you don't just all of a sudden be in bed with another woman and you're having an affair, right? It's, hey, it was that moment when you're flirting at the coffee shop, or the moment when you're flirting at the coffee pot at work. And that right there is a boundary, and you need to eliminate yourself from that. And so one of the things is you have to look 4, 5, 6 steps back and say, okay, you know what? What's the temptation, and eliminate that temptation from your life, right? And so as well, I look at that and I'm able to apply that same discipline, if you will, into business. And you start realizing, okay, in the mornings, having the phone available, that was a temptation and dealing with pornography. So I eliminated that and I made sure, okay, I didn't have that. That was when I was susceptible and stuff like that. Then I came over here into the business world. And it was the same thing. Okay, hey, you know what? I don't deal with people's credit card. That's a temptation, right? And I'm not saying like I'm still doing it or anything like that, but allows me to not even be in a situation where I'm even have a handle of that. Guess what? I don't even when I'm sending an invoice or anything like that, I'm sending it to them and they put in their information. They put it at their time. I'm not taking it over the phone. I'm not taking it one-on-one. I don't even touch it. I'm literally sending the invoice. Like that allows me to not even be in that situation, right? And so it just eliminates totally. So then when people hear my story, they're like, oh gosh, should I give this guy? Like, no, not even a situation, because guess what? It's your stuff. I'm giving it over to you. You put it in a very, I don't even have access to it. I don't even see it, nothing. And all of a sudden we can focus on bigger and better things instead of having that any trust or any situation like that on the front end. So again, it's allowing us to, again, I'm a faith-based kind of guy. I look at how God was able to take this addiction and being able to actually leverage it in more of a more positive manner, right? And being able to say, hey, these are disciplines and boundaries and things that you can implement in your life. And I still do that today, to this day. One of the things is when I was going to counseling, he said, when you're looking at a woman, right, it starts right here in the mind, right? And you're lusting over that woman. Well, guess what? I have a situation where I literally only can look at a woman for 3 seconds. I would look away, right? And I know that's kind of, weird or radical, but the thing is you have to be radical in order to improve yourself at that high capacity, because you have to take it very seriously. Because you see Ted Bundy and stuff like that, and you start looking at, okay, pornography was a very, very key part in all the other things and other attributes. And if you don't have that discipline on the front end, it's a very, very serious situation. And then having those disciplines, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be foundational or anything. I should say it's not going to be foundational. It is going to be foundational, but it's not going to be easy. But it's definitely very, very well worth it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm just listening to you. Obviously from like a sales standpoint, that's a hell of a way to misdirect any of the other objections, right? Like all the other bullshit objections that you get. Once you stand up and you say what you just said, all those other objections are gone, and now you're focused on that one objection. And obviously you just conquered that one objection by telling people what your systems are, but not even touching the credit card information. So I definitely, first of all, commend you for utilizing like your weaknesses and making them into your strengths. Because that's a powerful thing that a lot of people don't realize. They look at their weaknesses and they try to stuff them in a box somewhere, but in reality, if you flip them on the upside down side, you can start leveraging them to make yourself even more successful. So I definitely commend you on that for sure.
I appreciate that. Yeah, it's been a long journey, but it definitely is worth it. You have to find the right people beside you that are empowering you and saying, "Hey, yeah, you definitely can." But it's at the end of the day, what I find very interesting is it's about analyzing yourself, right? You listen to Tony Robbins, and you can look it up on YouTube. Hey, this is what I do in the morning. I jump in a 60-degree weather pool, and I'm like this, and I'm doing my motivation. Hey, that's cool. That works for him. But that may not be working for you. You may be a night person, whatever it is. But the whole point behind what I'm saying is you have to figure out what you work and how you work and how you produce results. I don't listen I don't read books. I listen to audiobooks, and I do it at 1.5 speed just because that's how my mind works, and I can listen to it, and it keeps my attraction a lot better. That's me. I'm not saying to do that. You got to figure out your situation, but it all starts with analyzing how you work, and then obviously implementing systems that help you. Everybody talks about this stuff, but it's like, okay, when you go to bed, you want to wake up and work out, have your gym clothes on. Cool. Maybe, just figure out things and boundaries and putting these systems in place in your life, because it allows you to. I was actually talking this Monday with our inner circle meeting, and I was talking about people. Hey, you got to have systems where you're proactive. So like, for example, I'll just share with you a story. Okay. Yeah. So we had numerous times where we had almost $60,000 held up with a bank, with PayPal, with all these places. And it was so frustrating because we needed the $60,000 to keep the whole business running, to pay people off. Yeah. And so I said, okay, Christian, I never want to be in this situation ever again. And I want to be in a situation where 60,000 is irrelevant to me, right? So 60,000, who cares? I don't care. I have $100 bajillion over here that I can leverage, right? And so I said, okay, how do we make sure that we're never in that situation ever again? It's the same thing. Hey, all of a sudden you're on the highway, you have a flat tire. I don't have the stuff. Well, shoot. Now you're in a horrible situation, right? When if you just had the stuff and pre-planned it, then all of a sudden you're just being proactive in these circumstances. Now, I'm not saying waste all your time and figuring out all if there's a tornado, if there's a tsunami in Ohio, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? No, don't do that. But you get my point is, hey, finding being proactive and say, okay, well, and that's the whole point of learning from that experience and say, okay, well, that's the same thing with Facebook. It kept disabling on us. They kept saying, no, you're not allowed. And so I said, okay, fine. I'll come over here to YouTube. And now I have an ad. I spent $150,000 so far this year in ad spend. We made a lot of money on the back end. But guess what? I never had to sit there and say, please open my account again. No, it's always been running. It's always been producing. It's always been creating. And I can sit over here and focus on other things like marketing, podcasting, things like that, brand awareness. So I know I kind of talk a little bit, but I just want to share that with you real quick and implementing those boundaries and systems. So I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah, definitely. So, with all these different things, all the different nuggets that you're dropping on here, and you talked about like your parents a little bit. We talked about you historically. We talked about your business. We talked about your addictions. So like, with all of that being compounded into you as one individual person, that's a lot, right? Like, how do you currently juggle that with your family life?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. One of the biggest things is, again, implementing systems where you can pull back and like today. I literally this morning, late last night, I was sailing with my dad. We slept on the boat tonight, and now I'm doing this podcast interview. Well,
Nice.
that's freedom, right? And I can work wherever I want, and I can travel. In fact, a month ago, I was literally beach hopping. Right. So I was going from beach
Nice.
to beach to beach, and I was just traveling down the coast, and I was, camping outside, and I was doing my meetings and stuff like that. But my point is how do you do it? Well, it's just implementing systems. See, one of the things is see, I don't focus a lot of organic traffic. And what do I mean by this is going into Facebook groups and talking to people and say, hey, come and join my stuff, and I, sending out tons of messages and all that stuff. I focus on automation as much as possible. And in today's world, you definitely can. So I have an ad, and yeah, I spend a lot of money in ads. But guess what? I spend $10,000, okay, in ads. It gets me 100 phone calls, right? Or it gives me 50 phone calls. Wonderful. 50 phone calls allow me to then all of a sudden come over here, and my sales guy takes my phone calls. I'm over here implementing a system and a process. So my point is you leverage things that are working for you all the time. And that's why I talk about how to leverage that stuff, right? So to answer your question, then that gives me flexibility to spend time with my mom, be able to stack her wood. And it's not about, I could go hire someone, but it's about just spending time with her, right?
Yeah.
And doing that, and sailing a boat with my dad and stuff like that. And so, and you have in the morning, now you could be listening to audiobook, you could be doing something else, but just enjoying life, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. So,
Cool,
yeah.
cool. I mean, so I'm a fellow sailor as well. I started sailing last
Nice.
year. I got into it and became a novice sailor. So I mean, what kind of boat you guys sailing out there?
Well, we only have my dad. He just recently bought it, and I was thinking of buying a bigger one, but he bought a 21-foot little boat, just a small cuddy. We have a little lake right here in Ohio, and we just enjoying life a little bit. So, what about yourself? You got a bigger boat, or?
Not that much bigger. I got a S2 24 foot, so a tiller. So I like
Nice,
to
nice. Do you
tiller.
go?
Go ahead.
Do you have a nice lake around there? Or?
Yeah, yeah. So it's stationed out in Lake Lanier. So Lake Lanier is probably one of
Oh,
the biggest lakes
nice.
out in Georgia. So I mean, I think anyone that understands sailing, once you get into it, they always think of it. The funny thing is, the smart remark is always a rich man's sport. But once you get into it and you can kind of leverage things and you understand, like it's not necessarily a rich man's sport. It's just that you have an opportunity to be on the water and have things that the average person wouldn't even think
Yeah,
they could have access to, right? So, yep, yep. So
correct. Now, is your sailboat, is it trailable? Can you trail it out to the ocean?
I mean, I think any boat is particularly trailable, but it's not. I can't collapse all the parts on it. If that's what you're asking. No, I mean
Okay.
it's the
Yeah,
main is.
that's what. Okay.
I mean, I could drop the main down, but still there's other components under it, and it's a in-sail motor as well. So I wouldn't want to move that
Oh,
big boy.
nice, nice.
Yeah. Yep. So
I get you.
uh,
That's awesome.
so let's talk about, like, I mean, you mentioned your morning routines for a little bit, right? And you're talking about listening to audiobooks and stuff along those lines. So I mean, what does your morning routine, your morning habits look like?
Yeah, it's really funny because one of the things is it's about simplicity, right? My whole life is I really focus on simplicity and having things in place so then I don't have to think about it, right? I wake up and I'm not thinking about, oh, should I go run today? Should I do this? It's literally I automate it. I'm running, and it's like a decision I make before I go to bed. I'm looking forward to my run, right? And I go run. And one of the things is when I'm running, I am again very spiritual. So what I do is I listen to Christian music, blast it in my ears, and just have a cool experience. And then as well as I also love listening to, and this may be really really bizarre, but one of the things I always enjoy listening to is Batman background music or like Transformer background music because it's so intense, it's so awesome, it's
Yeah.
like so heroic, if you will. And so I enjoy listen to it, and I'm shouting, I'm the best, I'm the greatest, I'm gonna be all this stuff. And so allows you to switch that mindset because whatever that day whatever that day happened, obviously from yesterday, obviously it's a new day. God has given you that day, and so you can use it however you want to, and it's dependent upon you, and you have to choose that. And so that's kind of what I do, and then I also do some certain poems and stuff like that. But yeah, and so that's as simple as that, man. I mean, it's not that big, gung ho, and I'm jumping in 60-degree. Yeah, I would love to, and I always thought that would be really cool. But no, I just the thing is it's all about habits, right? And I knew that kind of thing, I can't stay consistent with it. And that's one of the things that I learned about myself. For example, when I was building the business organically, I just didn't have the habit and the consistency to keep going into Facebook groups and messaging all these people, right? To get people in my business or, give them the offer and stuff like that. And so I thought, man, there's got to be a better way of doing this. And so then I figured out, oh, I can run an ad and I have a funnel and automates the whole process. That's, many years ago now. But it's simple now, but it's like, oh, that's a brilliant idea. So now I don't have to worry about that on the front end. The same thing with podcasting, right? I don't have to go out there and do the whole podcast. I have an executive assistant. She reaches out to people. Hey, we have this connection, boom, and all of a sudden I'm on a podcast. And that's probably the same way with you. I know that's how you have systems as well. So, yeah, so I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
So yeah, so this next question is, I like interviewing people like you because again, you say so many different nuggets, and I have to like make these mental notes and like my memory palace to make sure I go back to that question from earlier on. So one thing that you said earlier on was like you listen to audiobooks at 1.5 speed. Now, everyone that lives in my household, I drive them absolutely bananas because I do the 1.5 to the 2.0 speed on the reading speed of the individual, right? And I'm just like, dude, if you just listen to it for like 5 minutes, I guarantee your brain will adapt. And then when you go back to 1 point speed, it sounds like they're still. They sound completely sluggish, right?
Yes.
So my next question is a 3-part question for you, right? What books or audiobooks have helped you on your journey that you would like to recommend? Part 2 to this question is, what audiobooks are you listening to right now? And part 3 to this question is, obviously, with all the energy and all the information and knowledge you have, please tell me that you've had opportunity to author a book already.
Well, definitely. Well, that's awesome. That's really cool that you also do the same thing, because honestly, you just collapse time frames so much faster. It is so just beautiful. And you're exactly right. All of a sudden you go back to normal. You're like, oh my gosh, could you get on with the point? You gotta, come on, guys. And so one of the things is yes, I do listen to a lot of books. And one of the things is it's dependent upon where you're at. Okay, so I listen to right now a lot of technical stuff, and the reason why, that's just kind of where I'm at in my business. But if you're at the beginning, obviously listen to any Russell Brunson book. That's going to be really, really beneficial. Obviously, you listen to Robert Kiyosaki, understanding his mindset, that's mindset switch, that mindset change, and then also one of the things is I always like to listen to Dave Ramsey, and the reason why is just because he does keep it simple. He keeps it, guys. You could spend a ton of money, but unless you're learning how to leverage that money. In fact, this is where I remember where we had like $20,000 many years ago, $20,000 months. And I'm sitting there like, where's the $20,000 going? Right. You have to sit there and you have to figure out where the money goes, because when you start creating a lot of cash flow, man, all of a sudden it just flies out of your hands. And it's not a successful business unless you can take that money and be able to leverage it to obviously buy assets that obviously producing, developing, and other stuff. And then as well as right now, I'm listening to like Scaling Up, and then the $100 million Offer by Alex. And then also I'm listening to the $100 million, how to scale your business to $100 million and beyond. And so those certain things, and I listen, oh man, I forget who the guy is, man. I forget his name, but a really cool guy. And he talks about the exponential growth. He's got a podcast. If you literally type in exponential growth, I forget the guy's name, but he's an older gentleman, but he knows how to develop exponential growth. And so, I listen to a lot of his stuff because that's very technical. It's very focused on marketing, but he focuses on certain strategies that help you take what you already have and exponentially grow it. And that's through referrals and other things like that. And to answer your question, no, I do not have a book. I focus a lot, honestly, a lot of things. I focus on video and then pushing out a lot of video out because that's just how my mind works. And I always thought of doing a book, but I just never got around doing it. So I apologize on that. But
So I'm just going to give you like a little tip, and I just did the speaking engagement. This is like one of the insights that I gave to all the speakers. I was like, look, if you ever had an opportunity to do a 45-minute speech, and if you created that speech more so like an outline for a book where you have 3 core topics, you have your key takeaways, you have your Q&A questions all at the end of every section, transcribe all of that information, and then you do like a breakout session or a webinar afterwards that's an hour long, and the transcription between the 45 and the 60 minutes, easily you can get to 100 plus pages of content, and you have your book just like that without you having. So you got all these videos, stack those damn videos in a sequence of a table of contents, transcribe them, and there's your book, man.
Oh, that's brilliant idea. I'm definitely doing that. That seems so simple how you just structured that. And see, that was a system that you developed, and I thought that was brilliant. See how systems just implement and keep it so simple. That's brilliant. I never even thought about that. I love that, because each one of those are 10 minutes, 15 minutes. You transfer. That's brilliant. Love that. You just blew my mind right there, bud.
Yeah, well, I'm looking forward to seeing that book. Is what I'm saying.
I love it.
So, I mean, like, obviously, with all the stuff that you got going on, all the stuff that you've overcame and conquered on your journey, where the hell do you see yourself 20 years from now?
20 years from now. Well, very cool, man. I look at this and it's like 20 years is so drastic, but you're exactly right. What do you focus on? 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years? What does that look like? Well, one of the biggest things is, you know, I look at a lot of the countries right now, and I look at like Brazil, I look at India, I look at all these even South America, right? And I look at say, Christian, why are they not succeeding like the U.S.? Why are they not like, because they have the potential, they have a ton of resources, they have incredible people, they have the internet, right? Now, not everywhere, not like we are, but they have all this stuff, right? And so I know there's corruption, the government, all that stuff, but at the end of the day, when you release the potential of people, it allows such innovation and just get out of the way and allows people to really produce results. So my point is I love to get to a point where we're empowering people in these other countries. And so I can run an ad and I can be here in Ohio, I can be here in Las Vegas, wherever I want to be, and I can go and empower these people to go out there and build something, produce something. And I know, like obviously with certain things that are happening with Elon Musk, and he's developing certain things that are satellites and allowing people to have that access, that foundation is going to be there, which then allows us as entrepreneurs to come alongside Elon Musk and be able to actually empower these people to get out of their situation. And obviously, I know these larger companies are doing it. They got more resources, but also at the end of the day, it's us small entrepreneurs that can really make an empowering, empower these people out in Zimbabwe going out there and they're still plowing the field with their hoe. Well, why in the world should they be doing that? They should be going out there and educating and teaching and all of a sudden get enough cash flow to be able to buy a $20,000, $30,000, whatever. And so my point is there's just tons of innovation and tons of opportunity out there. And now because of the internet, and I think we've seen this even more because of the COVID push, everybody's leveraging the online system. And that is becoming even more prevalent and allowing people to have that flexibility. Everybody knows how to use Zoom now. That wasn't so in a few years ago. Now everybody knows how to leverage it. Everybody knows how to do this stuff. Everybody knows how to call, so anyways, my point is everybody there is there mentally. And so now it's just being able to turn the dial a little bit more, having that access. And there's going to be a ridiculous amount of opportunity. And I know the population is growing, which means, in fact, Jeff Bezos said something that says, hey, if we know that there's out of 1 billion people, you have like an Einstein. Well, shoot, what happens if you have 10 billion people? All of a sudden you just have more Einsteins, right? And it's that same concept, if you will. And so that became like, oh my gosh, that became awesome. It just empowered my mind to think so much bigger. And again, that just helps with surrounding yourself with other people that think so big and so exponential, because it's like we focus so much on, oh, I got to pay my bill, my electric bill, $20. Guys, think so much bigger. Imagine giving $20 million away because you can. You know what I mean? And so there's a $200 million. I mean, and it doesn't even, who cares, right? And so and so many people live in this, honestly, shit, right? They just live in this blah, And so I think it's like, guys, get out of that so you can think so much bigger, because there's so much more out there. You look at Elon Musk, and it's like, man, he's got 3 incredible companies and he's just changed the world. I mean, it's just unbelievable to see what he's doing. Same thing with Jeff Bezos. And so anyways, that's kind of what I look at in the next 20 years. That's what I'd really like to do is being exponentially scaling and really create several thousands of millionaires, because I know by doing that allows me to create wealth and so forth and so on. And so that's kind of what that looks like.
I definitely see it. I think for you to achieve it is nothing, right? I mean, from the perception of the outside world looking in, it is nothing for you to do it, because like you're on a path and you have systems in place and that's your goal. So I know you're definitely going to get it, and I'm looking forward to seeing that happen for sure. So my next question is, like, obviously you have all these systems in place, like you're moving all these elements. I know you're a big automation guy as well. Like, what software are you currently using that you would not be able to do what you're doing without having access to it?
Yeah, so one of the things I use is conversations.io, and that's really what it's a system. It's relatively new. He's just really kind of developing it. He lives in Canada, a cool guy. And so if you literally conversations.io and you Google it and you log in, you mention it. But one of the things is it's got an SMS attached to it. It's also got email campaigns, and it's also got an outbound and call in. So it integrates with Twilio, so then allows me to call in to any other country. And so that is a system. Now, one of the things also is that there's a number at 614-665-1256, and you can literally text me that number, and I can literally respond, or one of my account managers can respond as well. So everybody has access to it. They see all these numbers come in, and that allows me to, again, to automate. So when And I give that number. So I don't give my personal cell phone out. I give that number out to all my business owners that I'm working with and entrepreneurs, because then when they call in, my executive assistant, see, again, another way to automate that process, I can say, hey, have that person or another person to be able to respond very quickly. Or obviously on a podcast, say, hey, text this number, boom, 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 and say, hey, need help with business. And then all of a sudden I can interact with you, and then we can have that conversation and so forth. So anyways, conversations.io, that has been very, very helpful, because then allows me to not use, these other systems that are integration, and then I just keep it simple, right? Having one process, one system. It's like $250 a month, and then also like 5 cents, an SMS. It's really cheap, honestly, when we look at the whole perspective of it. But conversations.io, because that helps me with the calls, the emails, the SMS, creates a campaign, so I can do a 30, 40, 50-day campaign. And I can say, hey, send a text 3 days from now. Wonderful. It's very intuitive. It's very beautiful. And it works very well with higher ticket items and stuff like that.
Very nice, very nice. So, you're talking about higher ticket items, right? And obviously that comes with a certain type of individual. So my next question is like, who is your ideal avatar? What does that person look like? What do they eat for breakfast? What time do they wake up? Like, who is that individual?
Yeah, so one of the things I always look at, just like everybody was saying, I remember when I struggled with this so much. I remember when I ran an ad and I was getting like a ton of leads, but nobody was answering their phone call because they were low caliber leads. They were the kind of people that were like, I want just a survey job, and I just want to do surveys and make $10, And I was like, man, that's not my audience, right? They don't have the money, right? And so one of the things is to answer your question, it was quite a process. But then what I started realizing when I dialed them into my offer, and I said, hey, if I do my tech, if I did the techie stuff. So my avatar really simply is someone that is going out there and they've been there and done that. And what do I mean by that? They bought FBA, they bought drop shipping, they're doing Walmart, they're doing cryptocurrency, and they're not making money, right? And so they do all these things, they're doing all the right things, they're listening to podcasts, they're listening to YouTube, but it's like they just haven't been able to produce results. And they've actually bought and invested before, and they get frustrated because it was just modules, it was just systems. And so what we do is say, hey, if I did this for you, would you like it? And of course, they already have the pain of like, man, I got overwhelmed. I bought all these modules, and it was like, I got to do this techie thing. And I don't know, it took me 4 days just to get this techie thing. So it's like, hey, if I did this for you. So anyways, and they actually tend to be older audience, honestly. So professional, 35 to roughly 60 years old. They're obviously retired, or they're also self-employed, where they actually run a successful business, but they're wanting to get out of that because it's self-employed, right? You run a business, but that business runs you as well. So you're not able to scale that. And so, I've got a lot of individuals that are, salespeople, to people that actually run insurance agents, to also like people that have like a veterinarian hospital, and they want to obviously build an online business so they can, I don't want this, business. I'm getting older and so forth. So anyways, that's kind of my audience. They tend to be mostly men, but we do obviously attract women as well. Very sharp, ambitious, but honestly, about a 70 to 30 ratio with men and women. But again, they're older individuals. They need help with the techie stuff, and we carry most of the heavy lifting for them. So we integrate and produce everything. Yeah, we get a little bit on the back end because obviously we're building everything out, but that also helps us because, well, I got money in the game, right? I got skin in the game. Allows me, hey, if you win, if I make you a $100,000 business, is it okay if I get 6,000? If I make you $1 million business, is it okay if I get 60,000? Right? I'm like, well, of course it is, right? And so that's kind of what that trajectory looks like. Just being very transparent. But yeah, that's what our avatar is, and you have to really dial in that avatar because, hey, let's say for example, because we tried running our ad to the younger generation, 25 to 30, right around that. They don't care. We never get anybody, no phone calls, no clicks. It just nobody clicks on it, and it's the craziest thing. And one of the things I also want to share with people in your audience is realizing, don't get upset by that. Just embrace the numbers and embrace the metrics. Okay, the older population, it's working. Fantastic. Eliminate that. Stop running. Stop spending my time over here. Focus on what is working, what's producing results, and just run it. And so that's what allowed me to say, okay, you know what? I'm not going to try to advertise to the 25 to 35 because they just don't, for whatever it is, that's okay. Some of those individuals, what I've noticed is they're very entrepreneurial, but they want to figure out, they're still kind of arrogant, right? And so they still want to go out there and do it themselves and figure it out and da-da-da-da. And that's fantastic. The 35 to 50 and 60 years old, they've had failure. They know they can't do it. They're more humble, and they come in with more of a humble spirit, and they're like, I need help. And that allows me to really come in alongside them. And they're a lot easier to work with as well, because they're not like, I can do it, da, da, da. And it's like, hey, that's awesome, right? And I love working with more humble people because they're more coachable, and you can really, develop them and so forth. So to answer your question, that's kind of what we look at.
Nice. So I think one of the things that you just said was, I think I didn't get the exact number. So it sounds like a 6%, or is it a 0.6% conversion on whatever revenue that they come in? Like, how did you come up with that number?
Correct. Well, it's 6% because what I realize is you have 10 individuals doing $100,000. That's 6% on each one. Okay, so it's quantity, right? It's the same thing if you own McDonald's, right? I mean, that's one of the reasons why McDonald's is so successful, is because, well, they have that that stipend, but over a quantity. So I just created 6% because it's nothing. It's not like a 30% or anything crazy, because I want them to scale their business, and you have to have some high revenue, and that allows them to give them enough. And the 6% is something. It's like the same thing with like these small subscriptions, right? Everybody gets caught in these $3 here, $2 here, $3 here, and it's so small that it's irrelevant. But then all of a sudden you have $3 subscription over 1 million people. That's a good passive income all of a sudden. That's one of the things that it's actually a very cool marketing strategy. I don't know if you've ever seen that, or Netflix is very known for doing it. That's why they keep it in that 7 to 10, because they know, marketing purposely, that it's when you get to like $15 or $20, then people are like, oh, I don't need that money anymore, right? I don't need this service. But it's like $3, $7, $15. It's so irrelevant. It's like, who cares? It'll cost me more time to call customer service and get myself out of that subscription. So anyways, 6% is so small that it's really irrelevant, but also it helps me enough to be able to say, hey, I've got skin in the game. I want you to succeed, because the more you win, the more money I make as well. So that's kind of what that looks like.
Yeah, I think it's definitely detail in that, right? I mean, I think you just brought up like Netflix, right? But and part of my last presentation that I gave, I was talking about like creating brands into cults, and a lot of people, they don't realize like a cult, not necessarily a bad word, but we signed up for so many different cults without sipping on the Kool-Aid, indirectly thinking about it, right? And Netflix is one of these cults, because to your point, in the beginning they were like $4, $5, $6, then they were like $9, but they got people so emotionally hooked and attached. Now I think they're like, I think I just received my bill was like $12.99 or $13.99, something like that. So they've completely doubled, and their infrastructure of people that they have quadrupled over the years. So they went from a $1 billion corporation to a multi-billion dollar corporation right before our eyes, without us even thinking about it, which is definitely crazy based upon what you're saying. Like the whole 6% thing at scale is a beautiful thing. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and actually, I have a really quick question for you, because obviously going from developing a really good culture, right, and developing a good cult, right, having people so emotionally involved, I'm always intrigued, because it is about emotion, it is about relationships. But what is that strategy a little bit as well? Definitely in today's world, definitely if you want to scale, and it requires your time, but how to obviously stay involved with those people and still build a relationship with them at such a high level, but also scaling and talking to the masses. Does that make sense? Because obviously you can talk one-on-one, but also be able to talk to the masses. What kind of infrastructure do you have to be able to have that and still scale at a high level, but also get these people so emotionally involved and attracted, and so like, man, I'm so gung-ho about whatever, right?
Yeah. So for me, what I realized early on, like you're talking about the big household name brands, right? So let's say, for example, the example that I use is Apple. Steve Jobs as an individual is a brand, whether you love him or you hate him, but people buy into Steve Jobs because, much like Elon Musk of his time, it's like, oh my God, I love this guy. I want to be around him. I want to sit next to him. I want to drink his bathwater. And then he created a company that has a cult following as well. So now you have an individual, and then you have a company brand. Right. And then people think, okay, that's great. Everyone has that. But like, well, no, you have to think about that. The cult doesn't stop there. Then you have a product. It's called the iPhone. And then for that product, there's a service. So there's 4 separate brands that are all working cohesively together in one unique system. And that's when it essentially becomes more of a cult. So where no matter where you turn inside of Apple's infrastructure, you're either going to be faced with a picture of Steve Jobs, you're going to be faced with the Apple logo, or you're going to have an iPad, and then the iPad is going to be attached to iCloud. That's like the real bedrock of building like these cults, is applying these different systems and services on the products, the company, the individual, and the actual software as well. So hopefully that answers your
That makes
question.
perfect sense. Yeah, yeah, that definitely did. I really appreciate that because that's what I find so interesting in today's world is where you have these people just like Apple, where it doesn't matter if they create another product and it's almost exact same thing and they move the button or something like that, and then obviously people buy it. Why? Because of course you have that massive culture and you have that cult that are just people are buying just because it's brand awareness and it's of course they're just so heavily involved. And now does that come with because you have a credible product, or does it come just because it is also just that it is almost like a it's like um,
Ecosystem.
yeah, ecosystem. Yeah, explain that
Yeah,
a
I
little bit
mean,
further.
for me, that's why I look at it. Look at like I'm big into like Amazon, right? I love Alexa devices. Then I'm even wearing Alexa glasses right now. I have an Alexa toothbrush. So for me, when I listen to my audiobooks, I wake up in the morning, I'm brushing my teeth, it's playing it. Then I leave from that, then it's playing it in my glasses. And then I go into a room and I'm like, hey, pick up where I left off on the audiobook. So it's having these systems and how do I utilize it? And now, they even got a damn robot. And I'm just like, oh my God, Alexa has a robot. Like what like you start twitching like what can I do with this robot? What can I make this robot do to help me
Yeah.
benefit what I'm trying to get to my next step, my next goal? So to your point, I mean, it's having these different products and services underneath the umbrella of the company, and then Jeff Bezos is going to space, laughing and smiling the entire way, right? So
Yeah. Yeah.
yep. So let's just go into like final words of wisdom. So if you're talking to your ideal avatar, you're talking to someone that's not necessarily they understand technology, but you can help them really use technology. You're talking to people that they've had multiple different failures, but now you can put systems in front of them to help them cash flow forward. What words of insight would you give to the individual to help them to continue on their journey to success?
Yeah, one of the things is and this is what I always talk about a lot is like finding the who that knows how, right? And like I mentioned earlier is like, hey, you know what? And like I look at this and I have this like analogy. Okay, we're like plumbers. Okay, the whole goal with a plumber is you could go on YouTube and figure out how to fix that water pipe, and you could do it, but it's going to take you a long time to do it. Or you could go out there, hire a plumber. He comes in. You go watch Netflix. You go watch the golfing, and he fixes your plumbing. Now, yeah, it's going to be $2,000-3,000, but guess what? You don't have to worry about it. You know it. You know it was right, whatever it was, and that's what we are. We just come in and fix your plumbing, basically, and that's what we like to say. Is like, hey, I'm willing to build a business for you, and the reason why is because I got skin in the game. I want you to succeed. The more you win, the more I win, and so that's why we structure it that way. But also, it's like some of the people that we work with, yeah, they understand how computers work and they understand how the system works and stuff, but it's like the techie stuff, like the tag integration, the Facebook pixel and all that stuff. It's like, I don't even know how this works and why is a funnel? Why does it work? And actually implementing systems that actually work. And so we have like 20 different products and funnels that we already know work and produce results. And so we just implement that. And that's one of the reasons why we can scale a lot faster is because, see, that's one of the things that I had never understood is that, you work with these companies and they already have things implemented. And it's like, well, what I looked at it this way, I said, well, what if, for example, I have these products and all this time and energy that I already know work? What if I just went ahead and implemented it and actually helped these people instead of saying, hey, let's choose a random product that's untested that I have no idea if it works. Let's try to figure out and if this offer works, and let's just test it, right? And that's what majority marketers say. But in our situation, I already know, I've already done all the testing. It's the same thing with like McDonald's, right? You don't want to buy a McDonald's and say, okay, let's test tacos. Let's see if that works, guys. No, we already know these products work. Don't even do tacos because it does not work, right? And that's the same thing. That's why people invest into our system is because we already sat there, did all the testing on the back end. And so we just go ahead and say, go boom, 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 boom. We know what works. Integration, do the techie stuff, implement the back end, the warehousing, the shipping, the customer service, all that stuff. And then we just go ahead and take off. And we worry about, okay, now it's about learning the metrics. Understand, okay, well, what's our cost to acquire a customer? What's our profit? What's our ratio? How much are we spending? What's our return on ad spend? Things like that. Those metrics. Then, because now what happens, I always call it like the phase one problem. Phase one problem is, you have what it takes. You're ambitious. You're motivated, but how do you do it all, right? And you keep spending money and spending money and spending money, and it's frustrating. I look at the phase 2 to phase 10 problem, which is where, okay, better questions. How do we scale? How do we acquire more customers, right? See, now that you have a system, you don't have to worry about phase 1. You already have a system that works. Fantastic. Now it's bigger and better questions and say, how do we scale? How do we produce? How do we create? Because a lot of people I work with, they get it mentally. It makes sense. I have a product. I have an ad. People buy my product. I make money. They're happy. Yay, I'm free, right? But how do you do it all, right? And that's where we come in and we say, hey, we'll do all that process for you. We'll take a chunk of change. Fantastic. You're happy. I'm happy. And let's go out there and make a great business. Now, is it going to be a bajillionaire overnight? Of course. Like I say, no, it's not. Right. I'm very straightforward with that. But are we building an asset? Right. That's one of the things I always tell people on the front end as well. It's not, hey, I'm not here to help you build an extra $2,000 a month. I'm here to help you build an asset. If you want to help build an asset that consistently pays you on a consistent basis, so you can go over there and make love to your wife, and hey, you can go and do that all the time, and you have an asset that's working for you all the time. So, anyways, that's kind of what we structure, and so that's kind of those last words of wisdom, if you will, is find someone that actually can produce those results, and also one of the things is definitely has someone that has skin in the game, because when they all have skin in the game, that's how I structure a lot of my marketing strategy. I have like strategic partners that I work with, and regarding some of the things, I say, hey, instead of, I can help you with your marketing, but instead of sitting there and saying, here, I'm gonna charge you 10,000 and a monthly basis of 5,000 a month, and you have to worry about the ad spend. I say, hey, what if I just help you get a ton of phone calls, and I take 20% of that revenue? Would you be okay with that? They're like, yeah, 100%. I'm like, cool. Well, let's do that. Let's make that happen. And so I do all the front end, but then on the back end, I have systems in place. I only look at their YouTube ad every once in a while, make sure it's all good and everything. And then we're helping these people scale and make them help, $100,000 income a month. I make 20 G's. I'm happy. And I do that for 5 or 6 people, and fantastic, right? And so again, it's just strategy and implementing those processes. But though that is what I would say in regarding to that audience, definitely your audience, is finding people that know how, so then you can go find the who that knows how to do that. Right. And so then you can leverage that, but you have to filter through a lot of people sometimes to find those people.
So I think that the key takeaway, if anybody was listening that did not get the key takeaway, if you want to continue to have time to make love to your significant other, you need to contact the Side Hustle Boss. So with that being said, how do people get in contact with you? Like, where are you online? Like, what promotions do you currently have going on?
Yeah, if you type in Christian D. Evans or ChristianDEvans.com, you can go to ChristianDEvans.com, or just type in Christian D. Evans. You can watch my Facebook, my podcast, all that stuff. But ChristianDEvans.com, you can actually go to our podcast. Go to ChristianDEvans.com. That would be the best place, because then you can learn about what we do, who I am, why we stand for what we do, and what my values are, what we stand for, and then what our ultimate goal is, and then apply to be accepted into our system and stuff like that. So that's where they can reach out to me. And I really appreciate your time, man. I really love what you're doing. Just very excited. And really just blessed to be part of what you have going on, man.
Yeah, definitely appreciate it. So I got a quick bonus question for you, right? If you could spend 24 hours with anyone, dead or alive, uninterrupted for those 24 hours, who would it be and why?
Yeah, I got asked this once before, and I came up with a really stupid answer, and I was like, you know what, I got to come up with a better answer. And so I really appreciate you asking this, because one of the things is I would actually ask Winston Churchill, okay, when the darkest of the hour happened, I mean, you were being bombed, you had no other options. What got you through that detrimental time, when literally even your own nation men were saying, hey, let's have a peace deal with this horrible man, and there is no such thing. You saw that truth, and you had to stand up against your own countrymen and said, no, we are not doing that, because we have victory, and it is the only way. And having enough gumption and having enough stance to be able to withstand it, not only from two sides, from Hitler himself, but also from his own countrymen and some of the people that voted him out later on. But to have enough gumption to stand and say, no, the only way we will win is through victory, 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 victory. And it's just so empowering and so powerful. Definitely, it's such a dark time when there was no other option, there was no other choice. And I would love to be able to, pick at his brain during that time.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, I think you had an opportunity to think about that answer. So I mean, obviously, whatever answer you gave before has just been outshined 10 times over, right? So
Yeah,
going into closing the podcast, man, what I like to do is, whoever I'm interviewing, you're a fellow podcast as well. I like to give you the microphone, make the Boss Uncaged show your show. That way you could ask me any question that may have come up during this episode. Mike is yours.
Yeah, definitely. So I just had a few questions as well, because see, one of the things I'm always intrigued with is, obviously, like you're very focused on systems, right?
Yep.
And obviously that's been part of kind of our conversation. So what systems have you been able to implement? And it could be small, big, business-wise, relationships, or even life, to make your life simpler, to be able to obviously remove yourself from the business, so you're able to go and take a 2-week vacation, so you can be able to go on that thing, and you're able to focus on things, and your business grows without you at a high capacity. I'm not there yet. It still requires a lot of my time and energy, and I'd love to get your response on how you're able to build those systems, the right people, and so forth, to be able to totally leverage that at that higher level.
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy you asked that question because I mean, obviously, everyone you have to start somewhere. So, and I'm going to use the example of one of my systems for like podcasting, for example. When I first created my podcast was February 2020, and I was just kind of like worried whether I was going to have enough people to be on the show or not. And I was just reaching into my Rolodex, contacting people, and then I was doing step by steps behind the scenes, right? And I was like, how do I leverage these steps and put them into a system? So the first system that I put into place was an intake form. And I took the intake form and I embedded the intake form much more like a Russell Bronson lead magnet funnel. So in the front end, I have, hey guys, you want to be on the Boss Uncaged podcast? I've given them access to this landing page. On the landing page is all the options. There's the show, it's testimonials, all this different information, and then they'll be able to opt in, book everything, and then I'll just pretty much behind the scenes get emails and say, okay, you know what? John has booked a podcast episode for this date and this time. I didn't even have to talk to John. I didn't even have to communicate back and forth. So that took away less time for me to be able to do that. Then besides that, then I'm getting the email address. So then what I can do is then take that email address and opt it into the Boss Uncaged newsletter to kind of feed episodes as they come out as well. That's automatically done.
Mm-hmm.
And then in addition to that, any other time that I have any other systems that I want to upsell or market them to, then I can say, hey guys, you've been on the episode. This is something that we talked about personally. Here's another funnel. And I'm telling you directly what it is, but I'm saying, hey, check this out because of that. Right. So again, like my bread and butter is in that funnel, and I'm collecting that data, and that data then is going to an Excel spreadsheet. And in an Excel spreadsheet, I have multiple tabs. I have a tab for people, the episodes, the date they're going to air, like their nicknames. And I'm using inside that Excel spreadsheet a truncation to where I'm taking different cells and I'm combining them to create the title, the description, the name. So that was something that was taking up a lot of my time earlier on. Was like, okay, I got a copy from here, I got a copy from there. I was like, how the hell do I do that without doing it? Well, once the information comes in from the form then inputs it into the Excel spreadsheet, and then I have the formulas and take all the different nuggets and combine them in and create their titles for them on the fly. So that's just one of the systems that I have in place for like the podcast.
And now I'm curious, how long did that take you? And were you the one that infrastructured that whole process? Because it sounds like you're using Zapier to be able to do that, Excel spreadsheet, funnel. But with how long did that? And did someone help you through that process to be able to dial that all in?
So, I mean, in every group that I'm in, I'm always considered like one of the techie guys, but, I always say I married up as well. So like my wife, she's a treasurer. So she understands Excel from an accountant standpoint that most people don't understand Excel. So on the front end, like I understand all the softwares and systems in place. So I was like, okay, what can I use to leverage? So I'm using Google Docs on the front end because Google Docs automatically does the Google Sheets. So that's half the battle is just getting that content in, right? Or I'm using a form on a landing page. And again, through that, I'm just piping that in through that platform. That platform, 9 out of 10 platforms, you could integrate with an Excel spreadsheet, or you can integrate with Google Slides or Google Docs or whatever. So I'm good on the front end, getting all the data into the Excel spreadsheet. And then once we get in there, her and I will sit down. I'm like, okay, this is what I'm doing. I got the code to work 50%, 70%. I need the other 30% of the code to do this. How do we do it? So she'll take the other 30% and she'll itemize out the code. I'll embed my code with her code, and we'll merge them together, run a couple of tests, sit back and see what it looks like. And then, okay, good, it works. And then we'll just move on to the next thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Yeah. And see, that's what so I love about what you just said there is just automating it. So then that's a small thing where you can find technology to be able to do that for you. So you're not sitting there copy and paste. And what I find so very interesting when I'm talking to some business owners, they say, oh yeah, I got to copy and paste all these things. I remember when I did it back in the day, and it was copy and paste because, I got to be busy, and it takes up 2-3 hours of your time. But then you start realizing something can do that automatically for you all the time, every day. And so I love what you just said there. I mean, and that's a small piece of that whole process and your whole business structure as well. That's brilliant. Love it. Also, if you don't mind me asking one more question to you.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, cool. So another question, of course, is really being able to, scale, right? I know a lot of it has to do with, like you said, brand awareness, that kind of structure. I know at what point you focus on brand awareness. I like to say cash flow and then focus on brand awareness. But when you're in that brand awareness category, okay, when you're ready to start and really explode and say, hey, when people hear about, Boss Uncaged, what do you want them to think about, right? When you say Christian D. Evans, when you hear, Donald Trump, when you hear, Barack Obama, like there's a brand that you automatically think, right? And so my curiosity is, how do you implement that on a day-to-day basis to be able to say, hey, this is what I want when someone thinks about my name, when someone thinks about my brand, this is what I want them to be thinking about. And how do you implement that whole strategy?
Yeah, so for me, it's like I'm really big on education. So everything and all the bits and pieces of content that I create is always about being informative. And again, and part of being a boss, breaking out the cage. If you want to break out a cage, right, on a very linear level, you're gonna have to figure out how to unlock the lock, right? Then once you figure out how to unlock the lock, then you have to open the cage. And then after you get out of the cage, what's next? So as boss and cage, again, is bosses, small business owners, people that may work for corporate America right now, and they wanted to break out those cages. So that's what the brand represents. And so when I communicate with anybody, like on this episode, we're talking, but I'm informing the listeners, you're informing the listeners. That's what this entire Boston Cage brand is about. It's about taking the journeys and stories of fellow entrepreneurs and business owners and their insightful information and their steps and their tips and their trips and who they are behind the scenes and how do they get from point A to point B. That's what embodies the brand of Boston Cage. So I eat, lead, and I live that all day long. In addition to that, wearing your brand. And I think that's a piece that people miss. Wear your brand. I mean, it's simply wearing a hat, right? Or a t-shirt, wear it around the clock because you never know who's looking. You could be at a restaurant, somebody maybe look at the hat, they may just type in Boston Cage on Google. Well, I have so many different segmentations of Boston Cage. You type in Boston Cage on Google, we're on the top 3, 4, 5 pages, and they're all our content. So no matter if they land on our book club, or they land on the YouTube channel, they land on a podcast, or they land on S.A. Grant's website, again, that all came from me wearing the hat or me wearing a t-shirt. And a lot of times I wear t-shirts that are more like affirmation-based t-shirts. And some people are like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. I create wealth. Well, what kind of wealth do you create? That's an opening lead for me right then. I can communicate with them. If I didn't have that shirt on, that would have been a missed opportunity.
Love it, man. Just that small thing. That's a brilliant idea, dude. And honestly, I don't have any merchandise like that I should be focusing on that. And that's a brilliant idea. I love that because that's just so small, but also so many people think about these big things. That's what I was thinking, like brand, this and that, and this, and then realizing that small little thing, you just dial that in, and all of a sudden you got incredible opportunities to be able to talk to people and have that conversation. What is this? What I like this shirt and whatever. That's brilliant. Love
and
it.
Makes sense for like all your, if you want to create content, like you're creating Instagram images, video, well, you don't really have to go to the production side. A lot of times people take the production aspect of videos and images and they want to put their watermark, they want to put their logo. Well, guess what? Every single picture that I take, I don't have to do any of that because again, I'm already wearing my brand. So I don't have to take it to another step to watermark and to add logos because everything I'm doing, I'm already branded, I'm already logoed up. So that's one less step that I have to pay for to get processed.
I love it. That's brilliant, man. I love that because I see the hat, I see the shirt, I see everything. I think that's brilliant, and all the stuff on the back end. So that's good. Cool. So let me ask you this: Can I ask one more question, or I don't want to take too much time? But you asked me 20 years. What does your 20-year goal look like? What does that future look like? Obviously, you got a lot of activity. You're doing some big stuff, man. And I really appreciate your time. Being able to have this conversation with you, man. But what does that 20-year goal look like for you, bud?
I mean, for me, taking this brand to where obviously, I think we're global at this point. Like we have some little fragments here and there across the world, but I want it to not necessarily be a household name. I want it to be like a household education platform, much like how people go to Amazon for free shipping or business people go to AWS to kind of get, hosting behind the scenes. I want Boston Cage to be a brand that, much like if you think about a university or you think about an education platform, it's an alternative to that. So if I can get it to the point to where it scales up large enough to where there's people in Europe, there's people in South Asia, people in Australia, people in the US, all in this one community in this side of this Boston Cage environment, and everyone is getting aspects and everyone is learning and they're all feeding into each other. That's my golden objective. Because again, I'm creating all this essentially as breadcrumbs. Because again, I'm not going to live forever. So once I'm dead and gone, having all this content, all these images, all these audio files, all these different things that I'm creating as far as content, I'm making sure it's evergreen. So 20, 40, 50, 60 years down the road, I'll be dead and gone, but my grandkids will be like, well, what was my grandfather like? Well, shit, here I am. You know what I'm like. You never
That's awesome. There you go. That's awesome. And that's your great grandkids, and they're like, man, he's the boss, dude. He's the boss, I love it.
All thanks, branding, man. Right? It just instilling that branding in them, and it kind of puts them on a particular pedestal to where, okay, look, like if my great grandfather was doing this, genetically, I should have some aspect to that, and he's giving me information on how to do certain things. So at least at the bare minimum, they'll at least dip their toe in the water, right? I would hope they'll at least test out the entrepreneurial side of things because it's in their bloodline.
Yeah, that's huge, man. That's huge. I love that vision, dude. Love it. That's awesome, man. Love it.
Cool, cool,
Thanks
cool.
again, man. I really appreciate this. Good.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I definitely appreciate you coming on the show, taking a part of your busy schedule. And I think based on our personality, I think we could probably talk for another 2, 3 hours. It'll be like a Joe Rogan episode if we just keep on going, right? Well, I definitely want to say
100%.
thank you for being on the show today, man.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate it. I mean, I love what you're doing. I love where you're going, man. And obviously the education, the other individuals that you've had, and obviously with your audience, and just being blessed to be part of this whole system. So I really appreciate it, man. And you just keep doing what you're doing, bud. Big time, man.
Appreciate it. S.A. Grant.